All right, so now everything's removed out of the bottom of the furnace, the blower. Next thing you want to remove is the filter. This one has a 4-inch pleated filter. Pretty easy to take out. Not a problem. You can usually lightly blow these out with your compressed air, but sometimes they'll be just way too dirty and you'll have to replace you'll either have to replace it if you carry them, or just let the customer know that they're going to need a new filter. So we'll set that to the side. And this can go right back in. We're good to go. Now up under here, I don't know if we'll be able to get a shot of the reheat coil, but it's part of the high efficiency system on this particular furnace. And what it is if you get up there close enough, you can see a coil just right above the blower inside the furnace. Okay, so right now we are inside the blower compartment. We're looking directly above where we remove the blower, and this is the reheat coil. With these types of furnaces, we'll show you, but you need to bypass that. You're not going to be able to suck anything through that coil, so you have to do the hot and the cold ductwork separate. But basically what that coil does, after running the burners for a certain amount of time, that coil will reach a certain temperature, the burners will shut off, and the air will just be pushed through that hot coil. And that's going to reduce how much gas you use. The efficiency of the furnace is going to go way up. So that's why these days that's pretty much all they're putting into new houses. So it's a little bit more complicated to clean the furnace and ductwork on this system, but it's another reason why, if you can remove the blower, always should, so you can actually see that coil and clean it properly. Okay, so now that we've removed the blower out, we need to seal off the blower compartment before it's going to seal off the system while we're cleaning the supply and the return separate. Alright, as I explained earlier, this is a high efficiency furnace system. So when high efficiency furnaces are present, you need to clean the hot and the hot or the supply ductwork and the cold ductwork separately. We're lucky enough at this system, someone's already come in here, so there's already a bypass hole cut for the supply side. So basically what I'm going to do is remove that plate and hook up the vacuum, and then we'll proceed to clean the supply side ductwork. Alright, so what you're looking at now is we just took the plate off for the supply side ductwork, and just below our access hole you can see the A coil for the AC, our air conditioning coil. So what we're going to do before we do anything else is we're going to cover that coil just so that we can stop debris from falling into the coils while we clean the supply side ductwork. Okay, so now we're going to cover the A coil or the AC coil. And what I use and what works really well is just these kind of stiff filters that you can buy at any home hardware or hardware store, just because they're flexible and they're stiff enough that they're going to hold stuff on top of them and they're not going to flop around inside the ductwork. So basically you use these to lay on top of the A coil. Just kind of cover it over. And if it doesn't cover the whole area, you may have to use two. Sometimes once one wears out, it's a little floppier, so you can move it around where you need to cover spaces. And you can put that in there. And then to hold it in place, it's pretty simple to use a couple tin snips. Usually people carry a left and a right cut tin snips, and you just lay it in the middle on top of the coil, so it holds the pad in place. So very simple. That's that. All right, so now that we have the AC coil or the A coil covered, it's time to hook up our vacuum hose and get the suction started. As you can see, the hole's already cut. This is an 8-inch hole, fits an 8-inch vac hose. Some people use 10-inch vac hose, 8-inch vac hose. It doesn't really matter too much. Also, there is flanges that you can hook up to your vac hose that'll fit flush on top of this, like over top of this hole. So that's great too. I like being able to have my hose angled a bit so it's catching more debris. So I don't use anything like that, but by all means, if you do, it's great. So basically you just hook that right up into there and you're good to go. The other thing to consider too, I know I'm not wearing gloves or anything like that, but a lot of times I like to wear long sleeve shirts and definitely gloves, just because you're working with tin. It's got sharp edges, you can catch yourself pretty easily, so keep in mind all the safety glasses, ear protection, all that kind of stuff. If I wasn't filming a video and I was doing the actual duct cleaning, I definitely would be wearing that stuff. Okay, for the purposes of this video, we are using the HyperVac hybrid. It's a 220 volt vacuum and it pulls around 5,000 CFM. There's plenty of manufacturers out there, Nicro, Myers, just to name a couple. They all make portable units or negative air machines. It's nice to have at least 5,000 CFM running through the system. This one does the trick. Truck mounts, of course, are going to work great, just depending on how old they are and all that kind of stuff. But basically the QUADCA standard is you must use negative air, and you must use an air compressor capable of about 175 psi. And there's certain things you can follow, but by no means are we telling anybody what techniques they should be using to do duct cleaning and saying everything, we know everything about it. Everyone's got their own techniques, but we all want to arrive at the same goal, and that is to make sure that everyone's doing a proper cleaning. There's too many companies out there that are just not doing the job. They're in and out of houses in 45 minutes, and that kind of work, those kind of companies out there just hurt everybody. So that's what we're using today. Okay, now that we've finished setting up the furnace downstairs, we've pulled the blower, we've hooked up our hose, the vacuum's running, everything's good to go. Now we want to seal the system. And basically what we're going to do with that is we're going to cover all the vents in the house, including the cold air returns. So basically the easiest thing to use is a simple garbage bag. There is different kind of seals that you can use on the vents. Tape, all sorts of magnets and that kind of stuff, but I always found the garbage bag is the simplest and the most versatile. And what I always do, and what I suggest you do, is always put the bag underneath the vent and then put it back on top so that it's sealed. The reason that you want to do that is sometimes the way these vents are installed, they can be directly across from each other. So if you leave them on top, you could be blowing one, and we're using 175 psi. That could be blowing right through the main trunk line into the other vent and blowing everything out into the room, the next room over or something. So I suggest you always put the bags underneath the vents, and you want to do that with all floor vents. The ceiling vents downstairs you can probably leave open, because you don't want to have the system completely sealed, because you want some airflow coming back through the ductwork. So that's what you do with the hot air, is what we suggest anyway.